Hey guys, this is Grant Petersen with Kentucky Extreme Outdoors. Been fishing it up here lately. It is March 3rd. Yesterday we had some tornadoes come through Kentucky, and so I wasn't out on the water. But I have been out to No Lynn. I've been out to Taylorsville a couple of times as well, and the fishing's pretty phenomenal right now, believe it or not. Water temperatures are stabilized in about the 45, 46, 47 degree range. But for today, it's pretty windy outside, and it feels like it's about 30 degrees. So I stayed in and wanted to build my own spooling station. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I looked online at a couple of different people's designs and didn't really like any of those, so I decided to build my own. You can buy Berkeley's spooling station for $30 at Bass Pro. It looks like it's decent, but I heard a lot of bad reviews. There's a lot of plastic in that design, and so things tend to break when they're made of plastic. I decided to make something that was steel and wood, and I'm thinking that this thing's probably going to last me a lifetime. So a couple items that you're going to need before you get started. Number one, you're going to want a drill, and cordless or corded's fine, and you want a 1/2-inch drill bit. You can use that kind of guide bit, or you can use just a standard one. Either one's going to be fine. You can also grab yourself a hammer. You're going to need that for the carriage bolts. You're going to need a 3/4 inch box end wrench. And you're also going to need a nice ratchet. That's a 1/2-inch drive right there. It's a Craftsman, drop forge type of deal, and that's an impact socket 3/4 inch as well. So you got 3/4 inch all the way around on all your your sockets and your wrenches, and then a 1/2 inch to drill the holes for the carriage bolts. The other hardware that you're going to need is obviously some 2x4s, as you can see, and you're going to need to go to your local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever's in your area, and you're going to need to buy 2 carriage bolts. The ones that I have in there are 7 inches long, and they're 1/2 inch. And you're also going to need some flat washers that are 1/2 inch, and you're going to need some lock nuts that are 1/2 inch, and you're also going to need 2 normal hex head nuts to go on the outside there. So the basic design here that I rigged up was, and I'm going to explain this kind of step by step. First, we'll go with the wood. The left and the right post here. Here's the left post and here's the right post. They're both exactly 18 inches. I wanted that height because it seemed like it'd be the most stable. I didn't want anything too tall, and I didn't want anything too short. On the legs, these are all 10.5 inches. So the left front leg, the right front leg, back left and back right, everything's 10.5. All you got to do to tag those together is screw them into the side posts on each leg, so that exact pattern is just mirrored on this other side on the inside. So make sure all this stuff is screwed together nice and tight. I suppose you could use wood glue, but I didn't want this thing to budge at all. So exact same thing on this side, as you can see. The second thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to drill 4 holes on each post. You're going to want to come to the first spot, and you're going to want to drill a hole here on the left post at 8 inches. Same thing for the right post, 8 inches exactly. And make sure that you measure from the bottom so that you get equal measurements. Don't measure from the bottom here and the top on this one, because it'll come out all weird. So measure 8 inches up and drill your hole. And then on the second set of holes, you're going to measure from the bottom again, and you're going to come up to 14 inches. All right. So once you've got that all set, you're going to take your carriage bolts one at a time, and you're going to hammer them in. Okay. So I did the bottom first, and I just kind of pushed it through this post right here. Obviously, this right one wasn't attached yet, but I pushed the carriage bolt through, and then I hit it a couple times with a hammer to sink it into that wood. And it's really important to get a good seat on this carriage bolt so that when you put this lock nut on, this carriage bolt doesn't freely spin on you. That's something that I ran into with all thread, and that's why I changed my design to carriage bolts. So once you have that carriage bolt in and it's nice and seated on the outside of this 2x4, slide yourself a washer in over here, and then grab a 1/2 inch lock nut and start it on the carriage bolt and start spinning it until the bottom of your socket bottoms out. So this is kind of a shorter socket. It's for an impact set that I own. If you've got a deeper well than that, then that's great, but that's the deepest one I could find. Once you bottom out your socket, just grab your wrench and start spinning. Before you know it, you'll have that nut tight down on there. And you want to make sure that that's seated real well and that's tight so nothing moves. That's a really important one to keep tight. Once you've got both of those done here, you're going to want to slide another washer onto that, and that's going to butt up against the top edge of that lock nut. Then you're going to want to take your first spool and put it on, and then if you can see here, in between each spool, I've got another washer in there. Same for the top on this braid. So you're going to want to take another washer and slide it in between there, and then put another spool on the bolt. After that, take one more washer and put it on the outside here, and then again, same thing, thread a lock nut onto the carriage bolt, and make sure that before you hook this right post on that you put that lock nut on there. Obviously you can't get it in there unless this side is completely off. And that's another good point that I wanted to make. Make sure that your carriage bolts are on the same side. You don't want one carriage bolt here and then the other one going through this way. You want to make sure that both bolts are seated on the same side, and the reason that's so important is because you want to be able to take this side off and then take out your spools and change out your line. So make sure that those carriage bolts aren't on opposite sides of each other. So, and as you can see here, just kind of getting back to it, this is a really important lock nut right there. This controls the tension of how those spools are actually going to spool off on this carriage bolt. So as you can see right now, I've got this pretty loose, but that's just about the right tension. It looks loose, but it's not all that bad. You can simply spin this a little bit to the right, couple millimeters, and you can tighten it up, and it won't spin hardly at all then. But this is a very, very important piece of this right here, and this allows you to take tension on and off of your spool so you can control that line as it's coming off. You don't want this to be too loose because you obviously don't want the line spooling off of those things and just getting all birds nested up in there and causing you a mess. So make sure that you play with that lock nut there and make sure it's at the right tension for you. Once you've got that set, you're going to want to take another washer and put it right there on the inside of this right post on the 2x4 there. And then same thing on the outside. Again, standard hex head nut there, nothing too fancy, and a washer on it. You don't have to tighten the outside up too tight. That's just to really hold everything together. So don't over torque those. And you'll repeat that exact same process here on the top side. And if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. And thanks so much for watching. This is Grant with Kentucky Extreme Outdoors.